Friends, we gather together this morning to celebrate the life and to honor the memory of Alvin Sabroff. Alvin's family so very much appreciates your presence here with them this morning, which offers them a great deal of comfort and support.
Mizmor LeDavid, Adonai roi lo echsar, binot sheyarbitzeni al memenochot yanachaleni, nafshi yishovev, yanacheni v'magle tzedek lema'an shemo. Kam ki helech v'gitz al mavet, lo irara ki atai madi. Shivtecha u'mishantecha hema yanachamuni. Ta'aroch lefanai shulchan neged tzarirai. Dishanta v'shamen roshi kosir vaya. Ach tov v'chesed yirdifuni kol yamei chayai. V'shaveti b'veit Adonai le'orech yamim.
Adonai ma'adam v'teda'ehu ben enosh v'chashvehu. O Lord, what are we that you have regard for us? What are we that you are mindful of us? We are like a breath. Our days are as a passing shadow. We come and we go like grass, which in the morning shoots up renewed, in the evening it fades and it withers. You cause us to turn to dust, saying, return, you mortal creatures. Would that we were wise, that we understood whither we are going. For when we die, we carry nothing away. Our glory does not accompany us. Mark the wholehearted and behold the upright. They shall have peace. The author of the first of the Bible's 150 Psalms describes for us in language that is both poignant and succinct the nature of the good life and the fruits of that life. Happy are those who have not followed the counsel of the wicked, nor taken the path of sinners, nor joined the company of the insolent. Rather, the teaching of God is their delight, and they study that teaching day and night. They are like a tree planted beside streams of water that yields its fruit in its season, whose foliage never fades, and whose fruit always flourishes. Let us take comfort together now in the 23rd Psalm. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Kohelet, the author of the biblical book of Ecclesiastes, reminds us that for everything there is a season. A time for every experience under the heavens, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to uproot what is planted, a time to tear down and a time to build up, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to grieve and a time to dance, a time to throw stones and a time to gather stones, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to seek and a time to lose, a time to keep and a time to discard, a time to tear and a time to sow, a time to keep silence and a time to speak. Alvin Sabroff died late this past Sunday morning at the age of 89. He lived a long and an eventful life. He leaves behind his adoring family, who are grieving for his loss but grateful for his life. And he leaves as well behind a circle of friends and colleagues whom he touched with his intelligence, his creativity, and his warm humanity. The facts of Alvin Sabroff's life are rich in the blessings he received, as well as in the achievements that he fashioned. He was born on October 3rd, 1927 in Canton, Ohio, to his parents, Louis and Sonia. Both his parents were, in their own ways, remarkable. His father, a self-made man, developed a series of 8 grocery stores of various sizes in the Canton area, modeling for his sons the qualities of determination, of responsibility, and of hard-won achievement. His mother, Sonia, known as Sadie, had a stroke when Alvin was a very young boy. She could easily have succumbed to her malady and spiraled psychologically downward. But she, too, was a person of grit and determination, and she decided to live and to flourish for the sake of life and for the sake of her family. And she lived on for many more decades. Alvin was the first person in his family to attend college, and he made the most of this opportunity, earning a Bachelor of Science degree in Chemical Engineering and a Master of Science degree, both from the Ohio State University. He worked for the Battelle Memorial Institute in Columbus for 18 years and became the leader of a renowned research lab that developed new processes of metal extrusion for the aerospace and the automotive industries. Thereafter, he and a partner formed the Microwave Corporation in Allentown, Pennsylvania, and he also worked as technical director for the Brewer-Tichenor Company in Cortland, New York, before returning to Ohio to direct, for the next 20 years, the Advanced Process Development Project for the Eaton Corporation at the company's Corporate Research Center in Willoughby Hills. And later, he co-founded the Metalworks Consulting Group. Alvin's labors won him 10 U.S. patents, and he authored a book on his specialty entitled Forging Materials and Practices. With a broad record of accomplishment like that, and with an energy that propelled him in many productive directions, I think that you will agree with me that it is fair to say that Alvin Sabroff had truly found his vocation. These then are the main lines of Alvin Sabroff's professional life, and they are formidable. But there was also a warm and charming man in and behind these accomplishments. He was, his children told me when I met with them on Monday afternoon, a caring and a kind individual. In fact, the word kind came up several times during our conversation. He was, they went on to say, a person of consummate integrity and honesty. He was also a good voice of reasoning and determination, a person who was disciplined and purposeful and ambitious without ever relinquishing an ounce of his humanity. Quite a role model, a lasting role model for his children and for his grandchildren. Whenever I am faced with a dilemma, his son Grant said, with tears in his eyes, I think about how my father would have dealt with it. Alvin was both a creative thinker and an entrepreneur. In the latter capacity, he willingly, perhaps eagerly, took risks in order to take advantage of new opportunities. And whether it was research or running a company, Alvin simply loved his work. This enthusiasm manifested itself in numerous ways. His family told me that he loved to get up in the morning, put on his suit, and prepare to meet the challenges of the day. In addition, he delighted in figuring things out, in solving problems, investigating the inner workings of things, discovering what made them function the way they did. And for all his talent, he deeply valued and looked forward to working with others. For Alvin, the vocation of science was a collaborative enterprise in which people pooled their diverse talents and strengths in order to come up with a solution that one of them alone might not have been able to achieve. Alvin was also a family man. He enjoyed a happy marriage for 52 years with his wife, June, and after she died in 2011, Alvin would regularly say to his children that he missed her so much and that he thought about her every single day. As a responsible and capable family man, he protected his wife and protected his children. His children told me on Monday that they knew, that they always knew, that their father loved them with all his heart and that he wanted nothing more than to provide for them. We always felt safe, they said. In turn, Alvin was so very proud of the accomplishments of his children, whose lives gave him so much happiness and gratification. And with his beloved grandchildren, his most characteristic attributes always came through. His warmth, his gentleness, and his kindness, his generosity of spirit, his high standards, and his willingness to involve himself in their school projects. He frequently told them that he had high expectations for them and that they should have high expectations for themselves. He wasn't judgmental, but he wanted them to aim high. And his grandchildren knew, as his children knew, that he had a right to push them in this way, because this is how he had always pushed himself. Everyone felt Alvin's impact because of the depth of his character and the caring and loving way that he related to them and to others. I myself had the privilege of glimpsing the kind of person Alvin was when I sat with him at his hospital bedside just days before he died. We had been together over the years at family events, some sad and some joyous, but I had never, until that moment, had the opportunity to have anything like a sustained interaction with him. He was in some pain and discomfort when I sat with him, but he greeted me warmly and welcomed conversation. And with some prompting, he talked about his family and he talked about his career. And he did both with great, albeit subdued, enthusiasm. He told me that he felt lucky to have lived the life that he did. When I asked him whether I would get anything out of his book, Forging Materials and Practices, he smiled and he said, with great understatement, "Probably not." In fact, he smiled throughout our conversation, and rarely did he stop looking me in the eye when we talked. In a word, Alvin Sabroff was content. Did he want any medications or other procedures to retard the process of dying? No, he said emphatically. He simply wanted to allow nature and nature's laws to take their course. He was a scientist, and as a scientist, He had consummate respect for nature, and he couldn't, and he wouldn't, compromise that respect now. I was, throughout our conversation, touched by his warmth, his talent for relationship, his realism about life and death, and his quite obvious inner strength. Alvin Sabroff is survived by his children, Grant, Julie, and Kathy, by his daughter-in-law, Deborah, and his sons-in-law, Bill and Melvin, by his grandchildren, Matthew, Jacob, William, Samuel, and Sophia, and by his niece, Nanette, and his nephew, Brett. He was predeceased by his parents, Louis and Sonia, his wife, June, and by his brother, William. Alvin Sabroff lived a long and a remarkably full life. He enjoyed a wonderful marriage, raised 3 fine children, made significant and lasting contributions to his profession, and he lived to see the promise of his grandchildren. Those who loved and admired him will never forget him. Zichrono livracha, his memory will always be our blessing. Amen. I now want to call on first his son, Grant.
Thank you both for those kind words. My dad would be, he's smiling above us. Thank you all for coming. It means a great deal to myself, my immediate family, and just friends and everybody that knew my father. Dad, you lived a wonderful life that we are so proud of. You're an amazing husband, father, and Papa Al, and you touched the lives of many dear friends. Dad had a warm personality. He was compassionate, a good listener, and always a pillar of support. You were a great role model to all of us and the grandkids. You taught us the importance of integrity, to walk the talk, to be honest, to work hard, be a good listener, and importantly, respect others. Dad's parents, Louis and Sonia, were immigrants from Russia who came to America in the early 1990s, located in Canton, Ohio. No different than other immigrants who came to America. They came here with nothing, but were hardworking and were full of drive and determination to build a future and a better life for their family. Dad went to McKinley High School, worked summers at my Papa Louie's grocery market, and as the rabbi had mentioned, he was the first in the family to go to college, not just earning 1 degree, but 2 degrees. Simply amazing. He loved his years at Ohio State. He was the kitchen steward of his fraternity, Phi Epsilon Phi, which is now ZBT, and he loved telling the story about, when he brought down, no joke, half a cow from his dad's market, and he and his buddies at the frat house ate like kings. And it was good to be the steward of a fraternity. While at OSU, Dad met Mom and his late wife June, and they were happily married for 52 years. He adored my mom. Their courtship really in the family was legendary. Our mom moved to Paris after graduating from college, and Dad's travels took him back and forth many times between France and the States, and finally convinced her to marry him. So it was certainly a blissful life after that. Dad had 2 great passions in life, his professional work and his family. Dad had a long, distinguished professional career. Upon graduating from Ohio State, he joined Battelle and eventually became the division chief at a very young age. And, he often, in later years coined Battelle as the old Battelle because at the time when he was there, metallurgy, which was his profession, was one of the principal disciplines. And it was truly, he worked, internationally and around the world with what he was doing at Battelle. Just an awesome experience for him. Dad had a couple stops after Battelle, and then years later in 1978, He joined Eaton Corporation, and for 20 years had a second stellar career where he became the director of their Global Corporate Research Center in Willoughby Hills. And at the age of 65, he went into semi-retirement. Wasn't ready to retire yet, so Eaton, really allowed him to, consult and get involved with associations and do things that he really enjoyed doing. So he had another 5 years of being able to, really enjoy, working and do it, in a way that, was how he wanted to sort of finish out a career. At the age of 70, didn't stop, decided to go into consulting, and with one of his best friend, Dick Douglas, they formed metalworking consultants. In 3 years, they were consulting with mid-sized to Fortune 500 companies. Sometimes I thought that was a hobby for Dad, but his work was his hobby. That allowed him to travel to Europe, Japan, Korea, Mexico, saw some amazing places. And he'd always send us postcards when we were a kid back in the day, and was a pretty darn good photographer, and left us a library of slides. So now we got to get all those slides converted so we can watch them up on the big screen. Dad was a giving person, an avid reader, had such a broad understanding of views on world affairs. Our parents sat on sort of different sides of the political aisle, so there was always a healthy debate. Some might call them arguments around the kitchen table, but it always sort of led to a lot of good discussion with the family. Whether Dad knew it or not, he was exposing us to the idea of having our own individual points of view. He had many other interests. He liked to play golf, ski. He was a master at crossword puzzles. I think that sort of ties in with the engineering background. Every weekday morning or weekend morning, he'd be up early doing the plain dealer crossword puzzle. Had a love for Scrabble. Enjoyed his ongoing challenge with his grandson William. He was a great card player, particularly bridge, where he and Mom played. Loved to be with their friends. Dad was a patron of the arts. Loved going to the symphony and musicals. And he was also a pretty big foodie when they, before there were foodies. There was nothing that he loved more than taking his grandkids to Molinari's for chops. Later, when he moved to Breckenridge, he made his way onto the kitchen committee, hearkening back to his fraternity days, and introduced filet mignon to the menu. So made him, this made him and the other residents pretty happy. Outside of work, Dad's life really centered on family. He had an enormous heart and was always there for us. Thanksgiving in particular was really a ritual in the Sabroff household, which we will always continue. Dad was in charge of the turkey. No ands, if, or buts. He just loved having everybody in the house. He loved the stories, the laughter, the sounds of friends and family, and he looked forward to it every year. Dad was very, very proud to see his children graduate from college. Excuse me. And as a grandpa, he had the double joy of seeing his grandchildren, Matthew, Jacob, and William, get bar mitzvahs. He was there for middle school and high school games and events, graduations, college graduations, and he had really such joy in seeing Matthew and Jacob start their professional careers. Dad loved spending time with William, his Julie's son. They shared many interests, from haircuts to school projects. They just did it all together. That was quite nice. Samuel and Sophia, his two youngest grandchildren, gave him immense joy. Their visits filled him with great happiness and loved them, and he loved watching them develop their interests with each growing year. Dad, many memories. I'll always cherish going to Ohio State football games with you. The family dinners, the small talk, your words of wisdom, and you're just being a great dad. Our whole family is blessed. You are such an important part of our lives. I was amazed at how sharp Dad's mind was up to his final days. He was absolutely the smartest man I knew. Just a few weeks ago, we sat together going through old family photos, and his memory recall of 50 years ago was astonishing. He had such a beautiful mind. May you be blessed with a wonderful life with Mom, and thank you for making all of our lives so rich and full of memories. You did your job, Dad. You taught us what it meant to be loved unconditionally, to be respected, and to work hard. You're forever with us, and will be with our children's children through memories and the traditions you have instilled in our family. God bless.
And I want to call on Alvin's grandsons, Matthew and Jacob.
Good morning. We'd like to thank everyone for joining us this morning and honoring our Papa Al. Jacob and I are privileged to have known and embraced our memorable relationship of over 20 years with our Papa Al. A relationship that will truly be cherished for the rest of our lives. Papa Al was a man of many things: an intellectual, a loving husband, a businessman, caring father, an academic, proud grandfather, and loyal friend to many. Papa Al's personal and professional accomplishments stand unrivaled by most, and were ignited by his early experiences at Ohio State. Papa Al was a man of many passions. Although it was easy to see his greatest source of happiness came in the form of his family and work. Both of these passions were triggered during his formidable years at The Ohio State University, as he always made sure to place a special emphasis on "the" whenever it was mentioned. Papa Al knew early on that he was interested in chemical and metallurgical engineering, but was honed during this period of his life. Simultaneously, Papa Al met his other true love, our beloved Grandma June.
Papa Al had the opportunity to meet Grandma June while they were both studying at Ohio State University. They met at a restaurant now called Char Bar in the Columbus area. He quickly became interested in Grandma June, and luckily she felt the same way. It would eventually prove to be love at first sight. At the time, Papa Al was working towards his master's in engineering, and Grandma June was finishing up her bachelor's in English literature. Soon after, Grandma June moved back to Brooklyn, New York. After returning home, Grandma June decided to join the Air Force to allow her to travel. As most know, she loved France. Papa Al was establishing his budding career in Columbus, while Grandma June was on her way to France, where she was going to be stationed for the next few years. Given the circumstances, most couples would have given up on the relationship, but not Papa Al and Grandma June. Life wouldn't have been the same without each other. Papa Al found every excuse known to man to take business trips to New York to see her, and even made his way out to France in a chivalrous effort to prove how strongly he cared for her. My grandparents were extremely similar in regards to their interests and outlooks on life, but at the same time, they also had many differences as well. A beautiful relationship is one where you embrace the dissimilarities and flaws in your partner, and they did this in every sense, without thinking twice. My Grandma June once told me, "Never take love for granted, because it is the most precious thing in your life that you will ever experience." I will always remember how strongly they cherished each other, as this is something they stood by day in and day out, as they fulfilled a beautiful marriage of 52 years that led to the creation of an incredible family. I have many memories, great memories of my Papa Al, but the one that sticks with me the most is when him and my Grandma June took me to New York City for the first time 14 years ago. As a little kid, I was very quiet, shy, and often glued to my mom's hip. I was quite the mama's boy. My Grandma June, being the strong Brooklyn-raised woman that she was, saw this as an opportunity to break my shell and teach me about the outside world of Beechwood, Ohio. I was nervous about going on a trip without my parents, but at the same time I felt at ease knowing I was with my grandparents, who always made me feel comfortable, regardless of the time or place. There was nothing spontaneous about going on a trip with my Papa Al and Grandma June. Everything was planned out, and they knew more about the sites they took me to than the actual tour guides themselves. We went to museums, the Statue of Liberty, Canal Street, where I learned to bargain with street vendors, and they even took me to a Yankees game when the Indians were in town. When I look back on this trip, I am extremely thankful because it symbolizes one of the things my Papa Al and Grandma June enjoyed most about their lives, which was giving their grandchildren new experiences in their own special way. My Papa Al had the opportunity to travel to many different places around the world and deeply enjoyed each trip because he had a direct interest in culture and diversity. He never spoke poorly of the people he came across, as he had respect for them and understood that change should be celebrated rather than discouraged. I see myself in my Papa Al every day in the sense that he deeply embraced the friendships he had throughout his life and was loyal to everyone he ever knew. He would never give you his word without following through. I believe that this is extremely important because people often let relationships fade away or they lose interest. My Papa Al never let that happen because that simply wasn't who he was. I couldn't have asked for a better role model to teach me the importance of education, relationships, and most importantly, following your dreams, which he achieved, and so much more.
Albert Einstein once said, "Try not to become a man of success, but rather try to become a man of value." I believe my Papa Al embodies this concept better than anyone I've ever had the pleasure of knowing. As many intelligent and savvy people fall victim to their own successes, Papa Al was far from the norm. The work Papa Al put forth was in pursuit of perfection and intellectual curiosity, eventually leading to his incredible involvement in 10 United States patents. As a man that from a young age wanted to look beyond Canton, Ohio, and into the cusp of the great unknown, Papa Al embodied the mentality of a man that worked tirelessly towards his success, both personally and professionally, while never forgetting where he came from or his Jewish heritage. As a child, Papa Al and I would go exploring in the basement with a particular eye on the tools and workbench. For most 5-year-old kids, playing with a hammer and nails is very much off limits. Being the man that was my grandpa, Papa Al quickly made sure I knew what I was doing and taught me how to build boxes and swords in no time at all. However, my mom wasn't thrilled Jacob and I came home with swords that day. I think this story symbolizes the way Papa Al found joy in teaching, mentoring, and encouraging us to pursue our passions in life. The 52-year love affair between Papa Al and Grandma June was something of true beauty and is a building block on top of which our family has prospered and will continue to prosper in their image and legacy. Just as my dad always looked to Papa Al for advice in life, sports, politics, I too found his sage advice second to none. As I embarked on my start on my business career, my Papa Al always had the best idea for how to deal with a difficult boss or tough project, but always knew how to keep me motivated at the same time. When I moved to Chicago, I would call Papa Al to catch up, and we would always end up talking about business somehow. And he would always exclaim, "They better be paying you the big bucks up there." And I would always jokingly respond, "Soon enough, Papa Al, soon enough." I will always remember the humility, love, kindness, wisdom, and intellect you shared with me, and will do my best to make those big bucks in more ways than one, Papa Al. We are very fortunate to have had incredible memories with our Papa Al and also learned a lot of valuable lessons along the way. Papa Al was simply an amazing man who personified the American dream.
Papa Al had a passion for what he did, and he knew exactly what he had to do to become one of the best in his time to do it. He taught us that if you have a dream, go out and get it. Don't make excuses for yourself. There's a way to get anything in life. You just have to set your mind to it and not let anything stand in your way. Papa Al was a man of no regrets and never thought twice about the decisions he made in life. My Papa Al and Grandma June loved their family, and we brought more joy to their lives than anything else. On the day of my bris, my Grandma June and my Papa Al wrote me a letter, of which saying, "When you get old, a person still thinks about the future. But sadly, that future has become part of the past. So you must shoulder the responsibility of being our link that bridges what has gone before and what will be." Thank you.
to call on Alvin's daughter, Julie.
Oh, say shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru, v'imru amen. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom. Shalom aleinu ve'akol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom. Shalom aleinu ve'akol Yisrael. He who makes peace in his high places, he shall make peace upon us and upon all of Israel, and say, Amen.
Perhaps you will agree with me that one of the most moving kinds of tribute that we can engage in at a time like this is the deceased to be able to come forward and to speak so eloquently and with such passion. There is no greater way to honor the memory and the presence in our lives of our beloved deceased than to hear these wonderful tributes from children and grandchildren. O God of life, amid the ceaseless tides of change which sweep away the generations, your love remains to comfort us and to give us hope. Around us are life and death, decay and renewal, the flowing rhythm that all things obey. Our life is a dance to a song that we cannot hear. Its melody courses through us for a little while, then it seems to cease. Whence the melody and whither does it go? In darkness as in light, we turn to you, the source of life and the answer to all of life's mysteries. Will you please rise now for the El Malei Rachamim?
El Malei Rachamim, shochen במרומים. עמסי מנוחה נכונה תחת כנפי השכינה, במעלות קדושים וטהורים, כזוהר הרקיע מזהירים. את נשמת יקירנו שהלך לעולמו, בגן עדן תהא מנוחתו. ענה בהרחמים אסתירהו, בסתר כנפיך לעולמים, ותתרור בתרור החיים את נשמתו. אדוני הוא נחלתו, וינוח בשלום על משכבו, ולומר אמן.
Compassionate God, eternal Spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest in your sheltering presence to Alvin Sabroff, our loved one who has entered eternity. O God of mercy, let him find refuge in the shadow of your wings, and let his soul be bound up in the bond of everlasting life. God is his inheritance. May he rest in peace, and let us say together, Amen. Will you please be seated? I want to announce that the family of Alvin Sabroff will receive friends at the home of Mr. and Mrs. William Willoughby at 2481 Stratford Road in Cleveland Heights. They will receive friends today from 2 to 4 in the afternoon and 7 to 9 this evening, and again tomorrow, Thursday, from 3 to 5 in the afternoon, plus 7 to 9 in the evening. Our service will continue now at graveside at the Lakeview Cemetery. Once again, on behalf of the family, thank you so much for your presence here with us today.